I think I should have realized sooner that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that I need to do it too.
Welcome to the Workhorse podcast, where we dig deep into the grit, passion, and strategy behind building a successful rural business. We're your hosts.
I'm Kendall Ballantyne, owner of Central Park Farms and Marketing for Farmers.
And I'm Jessica Garza, owner of Moose Valley Ranch and founder of Market in the Mountains.
This podcast is for hardworking female farmers and rural entrepreneurs who are ready to turn their dreams into thriving businesses. From deep diving business strategies that actually work to balancing farm family life and everything in between.
We're here to give you practical tools, candid insights, and a healthy dose of community support. If you're looking for women who actually cheer you on, are willing to tell you the hard truths, and that understand how much it can throw off your day when the cows get out, you're in the right spot.
This podcast is for the doers, the women who don't stay in one spot for too long, for the workhorses.
It's quite possibly the single biggest indicator or marker of what you look for when you're in a community. And that to me is showing up. When you say you're going to show up. And I really wish that more people kind of understood why that's so important and why. And this is something from the very beginning of your business. This is one of the first things that people will notice. It's one of the things that will stick with you the longest and impact your reputation, your partnerships. It bleeds into every part of your business from the get-go. And I wish more people understood that.
But it's so easy to go sideways on it when you find yourself overcommitting. I feel like the people pleasing that goes along with how we oftentimes behave in business, where we say yes when we should have said no, all leads to that concept of, you know, working without integrity and not really showing up the way that you say you're going to.
I think that's very sweet of you to have that mindset and perspective on it, that it is an overcommitment, because I find myself incredibly critical of when someone says they're going to show up and doesn't. I am probably one of the worst persons at giving grace to that. I likely need to be better at it, but I have almost no patience with someone that doesn't show up when they say they're going to.
Oh, correct. I'm not saying somebody should overcommit and then drop the ball. Like, if you overcommitted because you can't get up the confidence to say no to something that you should have said no for, you better freaking still show up. I just think it happens more often in women in business because we have so many things going on. And I think the flip side of the finding grace for me comes from the fact that I had a situation where somebody that had committed to doing business with me in a certain capacity, what I thought dropped the ball. And I'm only sharing the story publicly because of the fact that she shared the story publicly. But I had hired a photographer who I'd worked with a number of times, and she had committed to coming and doing like a really big deal shoot for the farm. We were doing our entire line of prepared foods. When you're doing food photography, that means you're thawing things. I had my chef involved. Like, there was a lot of parties involved. And the morning of the shoot, she sent me a message and she was like, I don't feel good. I'm sick. I can't come. And I remember in that moment when I needed to reach out and send a text message over to my chef and their staff that were already at the restaurant, were ready to start prepping food, had already done a bunch of things, purchased items to be able to do it. And they were like, what do you mean they're not feeling good? Like, the way it had been sent in text was just very like, sorry, I can't make it. I'm not feeling good. And just the way it was delivered felt like they didn't see how important this was for us in our business. Fast forward a week later, and she was publicly announcing that she had been diagnosed with cancer and colon cancer. And she reached out to me privately and was like, I'm so sorry I didn't give you more information. I ended up in a situation, I was in the hospital. We didn't really know what was going on yet, so I couldn't give you more background information. And that was like a really big check yourself for me, where I was like, oh, okay, yep, that I had that thought in my head that I was being let down and that somebody wasn't showing up when they said they were going to. And then it ended up being something that was life-changingly, like she's through it. That journey was really tough for her. She's out the other side. She's been photographing with me since. and all that. And thankfully, I never took that as something that I publicly taught. Like, I didn't message my chef with a big raging, like, can you believe it? Thank goodness. Something in my gut must have said that it was more than that, because I, for whatever reason, just like internally bottled up the feelings of the person dropping the ball on me. And thankfully I had done that, because in the end, it ended up being something really serious that she was dealing with. So I think now I look at things with a little bit of a lens. However, if it is not something like that and you're just dropping the ball, that is a wildly different scenario.
Yeah, I don't have that default. I can recognize that is a very slim possibility. My heart breaks for her in that moment. Like, you think about another entrepreneur going through that. I feel for her. I'm so
that's
glad
the
she's
exception and
okay.
not the rule. And like,
That's the problem.
100%.
That's the
I think because that happened, like, if you have had that end of it, and I had a really great relationship with her and all the things. So that was like, ooh, like, it kind of gives me that lens of, before I react in a certain way or think a certain way, I try to put it through that lens. 99.9% of the time, it is nothing like that. And it is somebody mismanaging their time or not working in integrity. The vast majority of the time, it's not that. I get a gut check now that I didn't get before, simply because of that one specific scenario.
Well, I don't think a gut check is a bad thing. I'm sure as a human and as a person, that is one of my biggest flaws, is I would drag myself through broken glass and open flame to fulfill an obligation that I made, because I am so sensitive to the sheer number of really crappy excuses I've received over the years or watched over the years. It's not even like directly at me, but just in general, you sort of, and maybe there was something that it was just enough out of character for her, or just enough didn't resonate, like something didn't sit right, because I feel like every time you can see the train coming down the tracks and you're just like, oh, here we go. Here it is again. Or, oh, I'm not surprised. And maybe in that instance, there's sort of this indicators that you've picked up on before it that it's likely to happen. And I think that it is one of the quickest ways that women shoot themselves in the foot with business, is to think nothing of it, to think, I didn't feel good. I didn't want to. I didn't need to. Or like something better came along. Maybe I committed to something and then, a better opportunity came up. So I just didn't go do that. It infuriates me. I cannot in any circumstance think of how I would want that to be the reputation that's my business. And I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I am human enough to recognize that I have likely let someone down along the way. I have likely dropped the balls or under-delivered. I get that. But I would really hope that at the end of the day, those in my circle, those that I do business with, know that if I say I'm going to do something, it gets done.
For sure. And I would agree. Having worked with you, I would agree that is like, I've seen you drag yourself over the coals to get to the other side of something that you commit to. So I would say that. And I know that for me, I'm sure through the years, and especially when I was younger, saying that I was going to do something simply because I just had a really hard time not committing to those things. So it wasn't that I wasn't showing up. I just don't know if I was showing up at the capacity that I should have been if I was more careful with what I was committing to. And that came with learning for me. That came with growing and maturing and becoming the type of businesswoman I'm a decade into it now. When I was 27 and 28 and just trying to figure out my spot in being a business owner, it was like anything that somebody asked me to come to, anything that they asked me to be involved in, did I want to do this? It was like, yes, yes, yes. And then when I look at my calendar, I'm like, yeah, I can physically do all those things. I didn't technically double book myself, but how I was showing up for those things wasn't necessarily the quality that I would want to show up, the quality that I'd want to put my name on. And that's when I really had to sit back and say, okay, I've got to reevaluate. First of all, I'm burning myself out. Second of all, I'm not pouring into anything that great. And that's when I really started. I had a joke that there was that book out by Shonda Rhimes, My Year of Yes. And I decided I had to have a year of no, where I said no to absolutely everything. So I could kind of like reset to get myself to a point that when I did commit to something, I was showing up as my best self and giving the other people that I was working with the best possible me. And I mean, if you ask those people, they probably thought I showed up fine because I was like, still showing up and still doing my best. But I knew it wasn't the best that I could do if I had, opened up my calendar a little bit more and given myself a little bit of time to breathe between commitments.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I don't know that I've ever walked through a year of yes or a year of no completely. I know there was a shift in alignment. Some people know. Some people know that I used to have a bougie picnic business. If you picture those like low table cushions, exciting, Instagram worthy picnics, I ran that. I purchased the company from a friend of mine. So we had done a collaboration. Quite honestly, I was shocked that this woman showed up at the ranch for the collaboration because I kind of figured she would get like 10 minutes outside of town and then I'd get a message of, it's actually a lot further than I thought and I'm not going to show up. But she did. She showed up. We had a great giveaway. It was for a picnic in the glamping tents and I met her and we clicked. She's wonderful. And I ended up buying the business from her. And then she moved to Australia. She's from there. So I always love talking to her. It makes me miss her accent. I could just hear it in my voice now. And next thing I know, I had bookings all over Spokane and Coeur d'Alene for picnic show ups. And I was stationed, I say stationed like it's military. Sorry, that's a law enforcement throwback. I was based out of the ranch. So I was driving where she was based right out of the South Hill of Spokane, popping up to Manitou Park for her took 10 minutes. She could go up, set a picnic, come down, switch her laundry around, clean things up, go back up, pick it up. No big deal. All of a sudden I was finding that I was booked in Coeur d'Alene and I was packing for 2 hours beforehand, driving an hour and a half, staying for the 2 hours of picnic, cleaning up for an hour and a half, driving home for an hour and a half, and then still having to do the cleanup of scrubbing dishes, scraping candle wax off, cleaning cushion covers, organizing by color, so much. And I kept saying yes. And they were incredibly popular. That at the time was the only picnic business in the area. She kind of started it.
And I remember you sending me, we were in a call together and you were like, yeah, I've got this like little picnic thing. And you like sent me the Instagram handle and it had tens of thousands of followers. And I was like, what do you mean? This is like so popular.
That's a story for another day with in terms of social media because I had a couple of reels pop off. That makes great transitions because you pop these things up in the middle of parks and it's like this very aesthetic looking thing. Let me just tell you, though, that customers or followers in Dubai do not pay the bills in Spokane. So
for sure.
Shelving that for a later date. So regardless, yes, wildly, quote unquote, popular. We were on the news, had a great following, had several people in town with big followings that used our services quite a bit. I mean, I built really good relationships with women that are still, I would consider, close friends and contacts today. They may be the only people I would ever consider doing another picnic for off the ranch. But even then, I've told them all no. And it was because I found myself, I would commit to doing this job. And by the time I build it out, I was so miserable going that I was forcing myself to go. My poor husband was having to go out and help me pull everything for the picnics. I was feeling guilty as I was driving away from the ranch because at that point, Moose Valley was just started. We didn't have the arches. We didn't have the machine shed was barely done. And it was like every minute I was away from the ranch was another minute I could have spent building anything.
The business you actually wanted.
Yeah, the one that I actually wanted. But here I had this shiny, very wildly popular, very well photographed. Everybody wanted it at their baby shower, bridal shower, all the things. And I had to force myself into showing up. And I would get so mad that I had committed and said yes to this or taken another booking. And I kept going and I kept saying yes and I kept showing up. And finally, it got to the point where I wasn't even responding to DMs. I put in bold letters on the Instagram, no DM booking, like red X's in the bio, don't even try. I would just automatically delete them, which in no way, shape, or form was helping me build community or reputation. And it wasn't long after that I just quit showing up in that business. And lo and behold, COVID hit. Several other women decided they could make a couple bucks by having picnics, and there was no way I could continue to match the prices. They could show up for $100 at Manitou because it only took them 2 hours. It was taking me 5 to get there, and they couldn't serve it. I went up to 60. My biggest paid outdoor picnic was 60 place settings. I'm just the sheer number of totes that took to lug. I know we talked a little bit about your freezers for market. I was lugging those black Costco totes of cutlery, real glassware, heavy wooden tables. I mean, everything, and all over the
I have
place.
been in your sea cans, shipping containers, whatever you call them, from wherever you are. I've been in there. It's a lot. You had a lot of gear for that business.
I had this drive to grow it. I knew I wanted to be in business, and I knew I wanted to build it into something. And so I kept expanding and I kept adding on. Somebody'd be like, it started, can you do 12? Yes. Can you do 18? Sure. Can you do 24? Yeah, I can go buy more plates tomorrow. I like, yes, yes, yes. You kind of become addicted to that. Yes. And it was really cool to be involved in these collaborations. And you really felt like women, other women in business in town wanted to be in community with you because they're calling and they're talking. And then you're, having drinks afterwards, or like for picnics, if we set something and then you have to come back in 2 hours, like we would go out to dinner and then come back to pick up the picnic. What I didn't realize though was how many people along the way would not show up when I quit showing up in town. That was hard. That was really hard to recognize that I served a purpose for them. I didn't serve in a relationship with them.
Oh, so you mean the people you used to collaborate with?
Had no desire once it became like, hey, yeah, I can come set this, but you're going to have to pay my fee because I'm needing to get a sitter, or I have to clean everything. I can't just take it back and throw it away again or throw it back in the sea can. And it became very apparent who was going to be willing to drive out to the ranch, who was still going to show up for me, and who wasn't when I was no longer useful, or when I was no longer the cheapest option, or when somebody's friend did it. It was like all of a sudden people who I would never have called another balloons. I don't think Haley would mind me telling her story. Like this balloon company in town, I loved working with her. I would call her first for everything. Still to this day, like if I need balloons, that's who I'm calling. And all of a sudden, a new balloon thing came up, and a little cheaper, maybe didn't have a storefront. I don't even remember the details about it, but I remember this conversation with her about how it felt when this other balloon company was being used for everything when previously she had been the go-to. And then it happened to me with picnics. And I was seeing companies that I consistently referred to using another picnic company. And it was like, whoa, wait, why am I giving them discounts, bending over backwards, driving all this way, if there's not a true community behind it to where you support it? And then it becomes, on the flip side, really hard, right? Because business is competition. Business is that sort of open market is amazing.
For sure. And it is a little bit, especially when we put the relationships behind it and we feel connected to the other people that we do business with, that goes beyond just the transactionary part of business. And I think that is really common in this space that we all work and live in, is that we do a lot of collaborations, we do a lot of partnerships with things. And then when you start to get some things that feel like they aren't in alignment, or they're not giving you the same respect or loyalty, or not showing up the same way that you are. And I mean, I know I had that with the farm. I've had, business partnerships that have fallen to the wayside, and things that I thought we were going to show up a certain way, or we were going to work together in a certain way. And then, the person I'm doing that with is suddenly not holding up their end of the bargain. And unfortunately, in a lot of these scenarios, it ends up reflecting poorly on all involved, not just the one person, which is tough. When you're working together to pull something like this off and one of the companies slips on you, it makes everybody look bad.
And you're trying to untangle the relationship side of it, of I feel like I have a friendship with this person, but you just ran my business name through the mud because of your choice. And I default would rather 100 times over have an open and frank conversation with someone than just watch a nightmare unravel that you have no ability to control.
Yeah. And that hits me a lot. And I know when we started kind of talking about the idea of having this conversation, I thought to myself if I should even bring up the big issue that I had with Central Park Farms, but it's so much time has passed. The friendship is no more, doesn't live in my area anymore. Enough time has passed. And honestly, it was a big impact for me and my business when I felt like I was still kind of like a baby in business myself. But I had built a really good name for ourselves and I had really built a strong customer base with Central Park Farms. And I had put so much effort late nights and when I was all on my own, when I didn't have a staff, when it was just me up there creating social media content at 11 o'clock at night and trying to make sure everything was done and teaching myself how to do this, I had built a really great customer base of fiercely loyal customers. And a friend of mine at the time that we had met through markets had said to me that she needed some farmland. She's a vegetable producer. She needed farmland. I was like, well, we have farm space. And I thought, what a great partnership that would be. I produce meat. She grows vegetables. What a beautiful relationship that would be. My customer base would love to have access for that through the store. We had an old defunct greenhouse. And I was like, hey, I'll put money on this. I will fix the greenhouse because it was on our property. And I tend to be somebody that's like, I don't want to owe somebody something. Like, I don't want somebody to invest in my land. And then, if one season happens and it, doesn't work out great, I don't want them to be out anything. So Jay and I ended up investing probably $6,000 into getting this greenhouse revamped and things like that. And we had lent tractors and all of the things to try to make this as good as possible. And it was going to be this great, girl power. We were in magazine articles together. I had called in the contacts and did all the things. And she started farming with me and she was selling a CSA program. I included it in my newsletter, all the things. She started the crops growing. She had collected the money, all the things. And then she decided she didn't want to be a farmer before she had actually fulfilled the CSA. And she had farmed for years. So this was not that she didn't know how to farm. She got a job opportunity, which...
Wait, this was not her first foray into farming. She knew what it was going to take.
Successful market gardener, selling at market, all of the things. Good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, was a good farmer. Got a job opportunity partway through the season, about a quarter of the way through the season. She got a job opportunity, which I get it. Farming is a certain, you don't make necessarily a ton in a market gardening setting. Maybe I don't know all. She got a good job offer and she decided to go for it. And the thing that was the hardest for me is she decided to not reimburse her CSA clients, despite the fact that she only fulfilled a couple of weeks of the CSA. And so my business, that was a baby business at the time, that had invested $6,000 into this greenhouse, financially reimbursed every one of her CSA customers because it was attached to my farm name.
The amount of rage I feel over this story is... I'm trying to keep my face quiet. I'm trying to keep my mouth quiet.
It gets so much worse.
Rage.
It gets so much worse. So we were friends. And so I was like, I get it. That's really tough. You got this good job opportunity, which would have afforded you to be able to pay people CSAs. Anyways, she was going to get evicted from her place. Not like her place. She broke up with her boyfriend. Sorry, she broke up with her boyfriend. And
there's always a guy.
I had a rental on our farm. We had a rental on our farm that was a really good price. And so she moved on to the farm because she was like, I will be able to save enough money that I can pay you back for the CSA reimbursement because the rent is less.
Hold on. So you had already reimbursed her CSA customers?
100% of them. Yep.
So she quits farming, takes the job, refuses to pay for her CSA customers, then you pay for them, then the breakup happens?
Because I will drag my dead corpse over the coals.
100%. 100% understand why you would do that. But I'm just trying to timeline here.
So then when she needed a place to move, I was like, okay. And I go to Jay and I am just tail between my legs about this entire scenario because Jay and I paid for the greenhouse and we would have never done anything differently than that because we're not getting somebody else to pay for an investment on our property. But We only did that so that this specific person could generate money. We weren't charging her for a lease on the land. Like there was she didn't have to lease it from me. This is very common in our area. Free land lease common in our area because for us, we didn't need it for the farming tax break because I was already farming the land, but that's very common in our area. There's like a nonprofit organization that partners farms with farmland. Sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not. We weren't using that space on the farm. I was like, this is going to create value for my customers to get them out to the store. Like we used to have a flower farmer used to bring her flower bouquets and she'd sell them from the farm store. We used to have, a sourdough bread lady because I could sell more of my product because these other women were kind of co-opting their products into our farm store. So it did make sense initially. However, she decided that because she didn't have a ton of skin in the game, that it was really easy for her to make the decision to bounce out of that scenario of actually fulfilling after she had collected everybody's money to actually fulfill it. And then she ended up living on the farm under the understanding that she was going to reimburse money back to me, and then just decided she didn't want to do that. Never made a payment, never made anything. We ended up telling her she needed to go. And then she went to another place, and I got a phone call from that company shortly after, probably a year after, saying that they had run into issues with her and asking for my experience because they had found the newspaper article or the magazine articles that we were featured in together. And so they had reached out to the company and asked if I had had a good experience with her, being in partnership with her, to which I had to let them know that it was actually a really terrible experience. And one
Please
that
tell me
probably
you were forthcoming with that.
Absolutely forthcoming. Couldn't have been more forthcoming. I mean, because I have the receipt, like I have the proof of how that went down. Like there's no other way besides that. And so it ended up being it was such a huge financial hit for me at the size of my farm business. But more so than that, because I will never bet more than I can afford in that type of a scenario. But for me, it was the first experience where I was like, you know what? Not everybody shows up in business the way I show up in business, and being overly trusting of how somebody else is going to run their business put me in a situation that doesn't happen anymore. Like that has not ever happened since. I'm very careful with the way that I structure things. I am much more careful in making sure that I have contracts and all of the things in place. But I was too young. I was too naive. I thought everybody worked in the same way that I did. I thought everybody showed up in it with integrity. And it was rudely proven otherwise to me.
Running a rural business isn't for the faint of heart. Whether you're growing crops, raising livestock, or building a small town business, you know the challenges and the rewards better than anyone. That's why we created the Workhorse Collective, a monthly coaching membership designed for rural business owners and farmers who want practical marketing strategies, real community, and results that actually matter. Gain expert guidance and live sessions tailored to your unique challenges. Connect with other driven business owners who share your values. Get professional feedback to fine-tune your marketing and grow your business. Join on your terms with flexible options that fit even the busiest schedules.
This isn't fluff or theory. It's hands-on support from people who live and breathe rural businesses, just like you.
Visit the link in today's show notes to learn more and become part of a community that's working smarter, not harder, to grow thriving rural businesses. The Workhorse Collective, real tools, real results, and real connection.
Because when rural businesses succeed, our communities thrive.
I'm gobsmacked, and it makes me want to on every level. And I don't know if it's the investigative side of my brain. It makes me want to reach out and say, what did you think was going to come from that? And what was your thought process? And not to you, but to her. I don't know her, right?
Yeah.
But it makes me just, and I've thought that several times over the years as I have just started my entrepreneur journey, and I dabbled my way into it and tried a few things and failed. And there was a pumpkin patch. There was also a t-shirt Cricut. I don't know what to call it.
T-shirt printing company.
well, it wasn't really printing. It was the Cricut like heat press and some vinyl like painted sign stuff where you like put the vinyl cut out and paint over it and then peel it off, that sort of thing. And I think I was like fighting for the thing that was going to be the entrepreneur. Like I knew I wanted to build a business, didn't know what it was that I wanted really, like thought it was going to be it. I saw someone else doing it. It was wildly popular. Oh, I could do that too. I could do that. I think we see that really often. If the number of DMs I get about starting a wedding venue, oh, I have 20 acres, I could start a wedding venue too. I definitely had that experience when I started. I don't even think the t-shirt company thing lasted maybe a year, maybe. And it wasn't even really a company. Like, to be fair, I did not go pull, well, you don't really need like as much of this stuff, but I wasn't like taking tax write-offs and things. I was buying shirts at retail at Hobby Lobby and putting Cricut on them.
Do you have the Cricut still?
No, I think I sold it.
Oh, I was going to say you could have Cricut printed us podcast shirts.
Oh, we do. We should. Yeah, right. We're not cool enough for podcast shirts yet.
No, just the two of us, not to sell to others.
I was like, I don't think there's any market. And I think I should have realized sooner that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that I need to do it too. And I see that a lot. I think now I've kind of gotten to have sort of this perspective from running Gather and seeing lots of other women businesses and sort of becoming, I would say, like a hub. Yeah, a lot of people like come into my orbit and then I just sort of track them and they go out into their own circles. And then I sort of become a conduit or hub for all these businesses because they come gather at the ranch with us or market. They come to market and then I'm plugged in and I'm invested and I want to see how it's going and how you're doing and help if I can. And I watch this happen and you'll see something become very popular and then everyone's doing it. And that default is, oh, she does that. I can do that. I can do that. And it looks like a very successful business because let's remember social media is a highlight reel and not the full story on businesses. And you pop up and then much like my t-shirt business, I think I did do I might still have one hand towel from it where I took my grandmother's recipe and put it on heat vinyl and then pressed it on. It was like in my grandma's handwriting. This had sentimental value. So I think I still have that.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to make that for other people because I thought, how many people have grandma's recipes in their recipe book and would love to have it like out on a tea towel for Thanksgiving on the stove handle or whatnot. And then it was gone because it was awful. Like, not a dig at anybody that's making Cricut or heat press trade, but it was not my burning passion. It was not enough love for the business to sustain the late nights, the stress over t-shirt prices going up, the work to find vinyl. Oh my gosh, this vinyl bubbled. Now I have somebody that's not happy with it. Any of those things that came up, I had zero desire to overcome it. And I rapidly got to the point where I was absolutely sick of it and disgusted by it and just no more. Like, I immediately full stop, sold everything, done.
I feel like that just maybe made something click for me for the very first time. I wonder if sometimes when people don't show up, and they like cancel and they do all the things, they don't actually even really like their business in the first place. Like, I wonder if that, like, I wonder if you just like it's just not even worth it because you just don't even like the business, but you're just not even really getting out of it either.
I mean, I guess that could be it.
Because I feel like if you love your business, you show up well for it.
I don't know though, dude. I don't know because I have watched one too many women just sort of peace out. And not peace out entirely, just flake on something without a good reason, without an investment, or with like the lamest excuse possible, and then put it on their stories that they're actually somewhere else.
Okay. So I agree. So there's the scenarios where people are intentionally just not running. Okay, I'm just gonna. Yeah, I agree. But then I think too, there are the scenarios where maybe we just don't know better on smaller things. I'm not talking about you committed to catering an event you showed, or you agreed
or
to be
drunk.
Or we don't have time for that story.
Job
Or
lot for
like,
another day.
we agreed to farm your property. We took everybody's CSA money and we never did the CSA and made somebody else pay for it. Those are like the huge grievances. But then there's the small things that I think maybe we don't even really intend or realize. Nope, hear me out. There's the being really busy and then just like needing a piece of information from somebody that you don't really have a great relationship online, and you pop into their DMs and you just ask the question. You don't say, hi, before you do it. You just kind of slide into the DMs with like a demand for information. And I feel like those ones are maybe like the less big ones.
Like you don't think they realize what they're doing?
I don't know. Do I just give people too much benefit of the doubt?
You are very nice. I am not. I have very little patience, which we know this. I have for 10 years operated in the space of I ask you, I tell you, and then I make you. And I had a gun and a badge that allowed me to operate that way. I
Yes.
cannot do that anymore in business. I get that, but that is definitely a piece of my personality that I really struggle with.
Yes.
I do. Super hard for me. But I also feel like you are so nice.
Oh
And
no.
I'm
If somebody
sorry.
slides
No,
into my
I mean,
DMs without a
right.
hello, they don't even get an answer. They get a whoosh right out of my thing. Or
No,
sometimes they
I
go,
feel like,
hello, so and so, how are you?
yeah. No, and I mean, just like in general, you tend to default to the nicer edge of the interaction than I do. And I think something like that, sliding into the DMs, probably some of it is unintentional. They don't. Okay, so in social media, like let's break this down for a minute. We intentionally put our lives online and share bits and pieces of ourselves. And that creates what's called a parasympathetic relationship. The people that are watching us feel like they know us. And that's the goal.
It's
That
a
is what
trip.
we want. But they feel like they know us. In their heads, they've been, and not because they're delusional, but like because of the effect of social media and the way that we show up online, they feel like they know who we are. They don't have a problem talking to us. And you wouldn't hesitate to do that if it was a friend. So sometimes I do think that in the DMs, people don't realize how that comes across
Yes, I
because
agree.
they've been taking in our content that they feel like we are. And then all of a sudden you get a DM out of left field and you're like, who the heck are you? Like, you don't even have your name in your bio, you're private. I can't see who you are. I can't see your profile picture. Don't even know your first name. And it's like, hey, who's your vendor for this? Or what size? I don't know. I'm trying to think
Yeah,
of random
no,
ones.
like people will slide into my DMs without even so much as a hello with like very detailed questions about something that either A, they could Google, or B, that's specifically about my business and how it operates, which I mean, side note, I have a whole company that will teach you that for a very low price point or free content like this. But secondly, it's like, I am a human on the other side of that DM. I feel like I deserve a hello first before you ask me how much money and subscriptions I sell a month. Like, I feel like a hello first before you ask me my financials is a nice ease in if we're not in like in actual relationship with each other.
Community.
Like, I don't sometimes say hello to you when I shoot you a text message. I'm just like,
No.
hey, da 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 da. But that's because we're talking all day long usually anyways. But like, that's a different scenario. But I'm like, I don't even know you and you just slid into my DMs and I'm super happy to make community with you. But we start that with a hello.
Yeah.
We start the relationship with a hello. We don't start the relationship with an ask of information from me, please.
And double that if you're asking so you can take that information to further your own business.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to go there. And I likely made this mistake when I was starting too. So no shade, literally no shade. You can't know better if nobody tells you. So I'm going to be that person that says it out loud. If you are starting a business, another business does not owe you their secrets, their hard lessons learned. They do not owe you an answer. And it puts them in a very weird place, especially if you come at it as a customer and you're asking a question where they feel like if they don't give you the answer, now they look bad or they look rude or they look like they're unkind. Don't do that. Don't do that to someone else.
And if you're trying to copy what they're doing, don't do that. don't try to ask for their suppliers or their information because you are trying to do exactly what they're doing and you're not in, like those are that's a tough one for me. And I think because that kind of thing happens to me a lot. And
All the
I
time.
love, don't get me wrong, I love when people slide into my DMs. You slid into my DMs and now look at where we're at.
I did. I know.
That came from you sliding into my DMs with an ask and revolutionized how I operate in my business, because you sliding into my DMs led to our friendship, led me to a stronger female entrepreneur community, led me to new friendships and business ideas and all of these different things. And now we're sitting here recording a podcast together. How fun is that? That happened because of slide into a DM. So I am not anti slide into DM. You did it much differently than just asking a question.
Just a little backstory here. I slid into her DMs to ask if she would speak at an event. And I offered, fairly certain I did, it's been a long time, but I'm fairly certain I offered compensation, at least in the sense of a plane ticket or
a good time.
Yeah, maybe I did, but I damn well delivered on that. So I guess it was okay. But I mean, I didn't slide in and say, hi, I have a farm and I would like to start raising chicken and I'm a half a mile from you.
You slid you slid into my DMs and we were really close. We actually weren't far apart from each other and you gave me an opportunity to come and talk at something. And I really liked what you were about. And I was like, yeah, I'll definitely come and hang out and do that. And then I was like, now you're not getting rid of me. I'm coming to every one of your events because they're so fun. So I'm pro sliding into a DM.
You are still one of my most requested speakers.
Aww.
When I know, isn't that so sweet? And the women in this community that we've built down here, I don't know where everyone's listening from, but
that's
I'm
so
down
funny
here
because you're
Kendall.
in Washington. So you're down there from me, but you're up for everyone
Probably
else.
up for everyone else. But truly, these women, I would have never met any of these women had I not put myself out there and slid into DMs and started something crazy. But I also feel like they have learned from me that I will show up. I will deliver, even if it means overcoming an inebriated caterer, even if it means working through the night, even if it means picking up and physically moving tables in the middle of a monsoon to get you as best undercover as I can. I will try to do everything I can. And I wish more women in business took that lesson, like you said, of commit when it's right and be hesitant to say yes if you on any way, shape. It's always better to hedge your bets with I need to check my calendar. I'm not sure if I can take that on. Let me do a little thinking about it. Anything other than saying yes and 2 days later waking up going, I should have said no, and then not delivering on what you committed to.
And getting that gut feeling that you should have said no and then not being brave enough to do something about it and then bailing at the last minute or ghosting the person or whatever it is, because it's not a good look and it's not a way to build community. And I think that the community of women that have been built in the circles that I'm in is just so incredible. And when I started out in this industry, I didn't think I needed community. I thought I could do it on my own. I didn't think that I needed this. I had friends outside of business ownership. And once I got a little bit into it, I realized that having other women in your circle who are doing similar things to you, building businesses, farming, living rurally, whatever it is so important. To be in community with other women who are doing what you are trying to do, because that support system and that understanding is unmatched. And if you burn those bridges, it's real hard to get that relationship back or that community back.
Especially in a small town, in a small area. People know who you are. They remember what you did. They remember, it sounds very cliched, but they remember how you make them feel. And I could not, for all the money in the world, replace some of the relationships with women that I know if I called them at 10 o'clock at night, they would show up, and they have for me. And I will do the same for them. And I would drag myself through that broken glass and flames to get to them if they needed me. The same women that I would show up to late at night to help them pull together their project that helped me pull together mine. That's irreplaceable, but it's so quickly destroyed. It's so quickly destroyed. And the easiest way to ensure that it isn't is by not overcommitting and by showing up when you say you're going to show up.
And being honest when things go sideways, it like if something happens that's totally outside of your control, communicating that, being upfront, if something happened, don't wait till the last second. Open up the lines of communication, things like that. Because, hey, if a catering company accidentally has, they burn the something or whatever, like, let us know. Let's get in community, because we can rally together to get through anything if we can know about it with a little bit of notice, or if people are willing to communicate and not just, last second drop the ball. I mean, we can work together to get through things.
Oh, we're wildly capable, especially rural women. We are
Yeah.
wildly capable. And we all, I think, also understand this sort of human design, human nature. Mistakes happen. I have found owning what has gone wrong and being willing to communicate that has 100% changed the game. And it's when I see the most amount of friction is when someone isn't willing to own it and communicate it.
Yes.
Because otherwise, like we all have times where we mess up, and we all have times. I remember posting story during the monsoon, and I was in tears about how I felt like I had let down these women because it was pouring down rain and the event just kind of came to a sudden halt. This was not just a rainstorm.
It was insane. Like insane. The tents were like filling with water. Jess has a very different perspective of it than I do as an attendee. Jess, it makes her want to cry. I almost cried about that event. A couple days later, Kelly posted a video, and it was talking about, because it was so dark when the monsoon started, and Jess was pushing the water out of the tent, and I was helping. Like, a bunch of us ladies got up, and we were like trying to, so that the tent wouldn't collapse, we were pushing the rainwater out, and it was so dark, and all the women started turning their flashlights on their phones. It makes me want to cry. And then Kelly posted something that was like, when one woman, I can't even do it, it's going to make me cry, lighting the way for other women in community with you. And it was just like, Jess saw it as a failure, which was like, there's literally nothing you could do. It started a monsoon. The next day was so beautiful, sunny for Market in the Mountains. That day was so sunny for Gather. But it was so incredible to see the way that Kelly presented it exactly summed up. Because I remember stopping for a minute when all the women turned on their flashlights under that tent, and everyone was like, women were helping push the rainwater out of it. And I remember stopping for a minute and just like looking around and taking it in, because I was just so impressed. Some of these women, it was their first ever Gather. Some of them didn't know anyone. Like, there were women who had been to everyone, and there were women that had only been to that one. And it was just like seeing them working together to be in this community together. It was like just too much.
I appreciated the perspective she had on it. I will tell you that it was absolutely not my perspective. I felt embarrassed. I felt frustrated and upset. And I remember posting that story, and then how many of the other women did, kind of console, I guess would be a good word, like reached out, this isn't like it's the weather. I don't know why that there's my control issue of how I thought I could control the weather, or how that was in any way, shape, or form something I could handle. But I do know that at that time, seeing women who really respected the fact that I was willing to share that felt like a failure and I had let them down, meant that they rallied around me. I didn't go off and hide quietly and refuse to say goodbye and not bring them out their desserts and like shut down communication wise. I really openly shared how I felt like that was a huge failure, and I felt like I had ruined their experiences. And the women that, because I was able to communicate that with them openly, then had all the compassion in the world for me. And they may very well have had it either way. But I think that in communicating that, and in communicating the pieces of ourselves that are human, and the times that we make mistakes and the times when we mess up, you can overcome almost anything if you can communicate about it. But when you shut down and you block that off and you just sort of drop the ball and don't own it, it creates a wound that really can't be healed.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We know there are only so many hours in the day, so we're honored you choose to spend some of your time with us.
If you're one of the many rural women entrepreneurs who are struggling to find true community and step-by-step support that actually moves the needle in your business, join our signature group coaching program, the Workhorse Collective. You can find more information in the show notes of today's episode.
Together, we've set out to support and connect with women in rural business. If you found this episode valuable, we'd love it if you'd share with another woman in your circle. It would also be incredibly helpful if you would take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and we'll catch you next time on the Workhorse Podcast.